definitely an honor to be asked. Anytime you're asked to speak, it's an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the fact that you showed up to hear what I have to say. To be honest with you, the NSCA has played a huge role in my career, and I'm not saying that because I'm speaking at the NSCA conference, but because it's true. So from very first breaking into the profession to where I'm at now is strongly related to being connected to the NSCA. So my career as a strength and conditioning coach started at Fresno State, where I attended school and achieved my master's degree and had the opportunity to work as a graduate assistant simultaneously with that. Appropriately enough, I learned of the opening at Fresno State on the NSCA job hotline. It was kind of interesting how I ended up at Fresno State because I had been accepted to go to school at BYU. One of my instructors, one of my professors at Chico State, which is where I got my undergraduate degree in California, graduated from BYU, and when I spoke to him about where I should go, he strongly recommended BYU. And so I applied and had been accepted, and we had literally gone, visited, were within a couple of weeks of making the move to Provo when the job at Fresno State came open, when the GA position at Fresno State came open. Fresno was much closer to our home. My wife actually had relatives in the area. But the biggest thing was this in terms of deciding where I wanted to go to school. The strength coach at BYU at the time, Chuck Stiggins, couldn't guarantee me a position as a graduate assistant right away. And I felt like being able to get my master's degree and working as a graduate assistant in the strength conditioning program was more important than what school I attended. So I think in most people's minds, BYU is a more prestigious school than Fresno State. But for me, I felt like it was more important to get both of those experiences, to get my degree and to have that practical experience working in the strength and conditioning program. So we made a quick change of plans and ended up in Fresno. A lot of times in my career, students have come to me and said, what do I need to do? What's the first thing I need to think about in terms of being hired as a strength and conditioning coach? And I get the impression that oftentimes they don't want to hear this because they're just finishing up 4 years of school and getting their undergraduate degree. But I feel like going on and getting your master's degree is pretty much a requirement for this reason. If a position opened up at CSU Pueblo where I work, as an assistant strength coach position opened up tomorrow, I would get at least 40 people applying for that job, guaranteed. And out of those 40 people, a very large portion of those are going to have earned their master's degree already. And so I need to weed my way through these 40 applications. And the very first thing I'm going to do is separate them into two piles, those who have their master's degree and those who do not. Right? If I can hire someone who has their master's degree, it doesn't make sense to me to hire someone that only has an undergraduate degree. So that's the very first thing I'm going to use to separate the pile of applicants out. So is it possible to get a job without your master's degree? Yeah, of course, especially if it's a situation where you know someone. But the vast majority of the time, you've got to have that master's degree to be seriously considered for the job. Again, why would I hire someone without a master's degree when I have 20-some applicants on my desk that already have that master's degree in hand? So, and again, I made that decision to go to Fresno because of that second aspect of that. I wanted to get my master's degree, but I also wanted to have that practical experience working in a strength and conditioning facility. So if you have the opportunity to achieve both of those, you're going to be far better off. Getting a position as a graduate assistant is very, very competitive. There's way more people applying for the jobs than applying for the positions than positions available. So in all reality, you may end up having to volunteer for a period of time. If you're serious enough about wanting to get into the profession, you're going to have to make that decision where you say, all right, I'm just going to volunteer, I'm going to show up and do whatever you ask me to do. So true story, while I was the head strength coach at the Air Force Academy, I had an individual who I had never met come to me and said, hey, I really am interested in working with the program. I was like, well, I don't have any position available, but if you're willing to volunteer your time, we'll certainly can make use of you. It'd be silly of me to turn someone down who's willing to volunteer their time. So we started off doing odd jobs, gradually worked up to having a team or two, and he's been the head strength coach at the Air Force Academy ever since I left, which is 5 or 6 years ago now. And he started off as a volunteer. All right? So the opportunity presents itself, go in and volunteer and gradually work your way up because it's going to work out for you in the long run. Even if you don't get a job there, obviously, if you have the opportunity to have that practical experience and have your master's degree, you're going to be far off to advantage. And that brings me to my next point. So if I have the opportunity to hire someone with a master's degree and practical experience, that's going to be my next set of criteria that I'm looking at. I want to hire someone who has their master's degree and have actually worked in their profession. Makes sense to me. Why would I hire someone with no experience working in a collegiate strength and conditioning facility if I can hire someone who has that master's degree and who has that experience? Right? So that's going to be my second criteria. They have their degree, their master's degree, and they have practical experience. Next thing. I got 40 applicants. I've weeded them down to 20. From there, I've weeded that down further to those people who have their master's degree, who have practical experience. The next thing I'm going to look at is, are they certified? I want to hire someone who's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, someone who has that expertise. And the other thing is it makes our program more valid in that we're hiring certified staff rather than uncertified staff. So again, why would I hire someone who doesn't have their CSCS when I can hire someone who has a degree, who has practical experience, and is certified? It's going to be automatic for me. I'm going to make that choice right off the bat. For me, the next thing I'm going to do, I have my people who are degreed, certified, and experienced. I'm going to start contacting those references where they volunteer, where they work as a graduate assistant. I want to contact those people who supervise them and get input from them. That's going to be one of the primary deciding factors in terms of who I eventually decide to offer that position to. So the reason I'm saying that is it's important for you to do a great job in that setting. Even as a volunteer, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to make a good impression on that person that is supervising you. Whatever they ask you to do, whatever hours they ask you to work, you have to be willing to do that so that when I call them up and say, what do you think about this person? They give me a very strong recommendation. Why would I hire someone that doesn't have a stronger recommendation when I could get people who have a strong recommendation and those other criteria that I'm looking for? One thing that I always say, and in fact I just presented at 8 o'clock like I said, and I mentioned it in that presentation as well, but I have a responsibility to continue to improve my program. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, working as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach, and I try to get better every year. So obviously, the longer I coach, the fewer changes I'm going to see year to year in my program. Obviously, I feel very comfortable with the things that we're doing. But my feeling is this: if I ever get to a point in my career as a strength and conditioning coach that I look at my program and say, you know what, that's as good as it can get, can't get any better, I'm not going to ever make any changes. That's a pretty good indication it's time for me to retire, because you can always get better. And that's one of the things I like about this profession, is it is growing, it is evolving, more information is coming out on a regular basis, so you can continue to improve your program. One of the reasons that I like being a member of the NSCA so much is because of those two journals that are available to us. So, for example, and I mentioned this in my previous presentation this morning, but one change I made this year, I had read an article in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research on using the interset rest times during hypertrophy training. Meaning that if I'm doing a set of 12, I'm going to do 6 reps, I'm going to rest, and then I'm going to do 6 additional reps to finish on my set. Something that we had never done before. Advantage of doing that is that you get the same hypertrophic effect. You can use more weight because you get that rest time, so you maintain or increase your strength levels more effectively. And because you're getting that rest time, you can move the bar more explosively, which we put a big emphasis on. So it's just that's just an example of one thing. You know, I've been doing this for 20-some years, and you still can continue to improve your program on a yearly basis. It's never a perfect program, and that's one thing that's exciting about that profession. One thing that I've done throughout my career, I started off as a journalism major. I like to write. Don't ask me to do a math problem, even basic math, because I'm horrible at math, right? But I like to write. And one thing that's really helped me in my career in terms of advancing is doing a lot of publishing. I don't do as much as I used to, but I still try to publish on a regular basis. And I have to be honest with you, being elected to the board of directors, most people had no idea who I was except for the fact that they had seen my name attached to articles on a regular basis. Walking down the hallway at a conference one year, and someone from Australia stopped me and said, "Aren't you Alan Hedrick? I read your stuff." And I was like, "Yeah." He says, "Like, how would you like to come to Australia and speak?" And it took me about a second, and I said, "Yes, yes, I would do that." You know, so publishing has been such an advantage for me, not only in terms of that, but just enhancing my own knowledge base. So what I would usually do is say, you know, I want to find out more information about this subject. So what I would do is go to the library, especially when I worked at the Olympic Training Center, and even at the Air Force Academy, I had access to the sports science library that was at the training center at the time. Go in and research whatever area I wanted to be more knowledgeable on, use that research that I did to write an article, publish, and improve myself as a strength coach at the same time. So publishing has been a big advantage to me as a strength and conditioning coach. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not a really outgoing person by nature, pretty quiet. If I'm going down the hallway, more than likely I'm just going to pass by. Not because I'm unfriendly, I'm just quiet, kind of introverted. So for me, publishing has been a way to promote myself in a way that I feel comfortable with, to be honest with you. In addition to publishing, speaking is also something that's been advantageous to me. So I just said I'm pretty introverted, but standing up here talking about something that I enjoy so much comes perfectly natural to me. I was a horrible student at my speech class in high school. I did the minimum number of speeches I needed to get a C and pass a class because I had to speak about things that I didn't really care about. But when I had the opportunity to speak, I can speak to 300 people very comfortably about this subject because it's something that I enjoy so much. It's something that I feel comfortable speaking about. And again, speaking has been a good way to promote myself, and it's also been a good way to improve myself as a strength and conditioning coach because, again, you have to do the research necessary to make the presentation. So you promote yourself, and you also increase your knowledge base at the same time. So that's been an effective process for me as well.